Welcome to the With You and For You podcast. Our desire is to equip college-age students within the Edmond, OKC area by discussing topics and questions that are relevant to our generation. With that in mind, thank you for tuning in, and let's get to the show. Welcome to the With You and For You podcast. Today we're just going to be going over introductions and kind of just explaining what we're doing and who we are. All right, go ahead, Kyle.
All right. Well, yes, my name's Kyle Thomas, and I'm the BCM director at the University of Central Oklahoma, and I've been serving there for about a year, and it's been really exciting, and we've been able to add some people on staff that are going to introduce themselves right now.
My name is Krista, and I'm the women's director at the UCO BCM, and I've been there for about 6 months.
My name is Tyson. I'm the men's director at the UCO BCM. I've been here for about 6 months, but before that, I was a seasoned student at UCO
Yes, you
and
were.
in the
Nice.
BCM.
Very well seasoned.
Yeah, very well. Very well. Then I'm Riley Jackson. I'm a student at UCO. This year I'm a junior, and I'm the host of this podcast. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, cool. So Kyle, can you kind of just explain a little bit, like, how'd you get into ministry? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I spent a lot of time in my youth group around my youth pastor, and just through conversations with him and just how I kind of have just being able to relate with people pretty well. He was like, Kyle, have you ever thought about ministry? And I was like, no, I haven't. But through that, and really towards the end of my high school time, I just started to feel the Lord kind of leading me into ministry, and then I went to college and didn't really actively pursue the Lord for the first year. But luckily, a guy by the name of Shannon Cross, who is my BCM director, reached out to me, kept pursuing me, invested in me, and through his discipleship and investment, the Lord affirmed a calling into ministry in my life, and that's when I knew I wanted to disciple young adults. So, high school, college-age students, and that's really what led me into serving in church ministry for about 7 years. And then I got into campus ministry January of 2019, and I haven't looked back.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. Krista, what about you?
So I went into college. I graduated high school in 2018, and I went into college thinking I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I was a music major, thought I wanted to pursue that, and I was in my classes, and I had no clue what was going on. And so I was like, this isn't it. And I had always enjoyed doing ministry and enjoyed serving within my church. And I had started getting plugged into the BCM there at Tulsa Community College, which is where I first started going to college. And I started going to the BCM, and I just fell in love with it. And then Kyle came in and was my director, and he asked me if I wanted to intern for him. And I said, let me pray about that, with the full intention of, hey, I cannot do this. And I actually remember we were at 918 Coffee with Sarah Ashcroft when you asked me. Like, I remember all of this, and I remember getting in my car.
I remember that.
I do, because it was a pivotal moment in my life. Because I remember getting in my car and being like, Lord, I cannot do this. And he was like, yeah, you're right, you can't, but I can. And I said, okay. And so like a few days later, I told Kyle in the internship, and it honestly changed my life, and I loved it. And I love BCM ministry. I love teaching students how to center their lives around pursuing and fulfilling the Great Commission. And that's what BCM meant for me, and that's what it changed my life to do. And so I love that I get to pour back into students and do the same thing that BCM did for me. So
Cool. Awesome. Tyson, what about you?
So my story is the only one that doesn't involve TCC at all.
Oh.
So I graduated high school in 2016. Was in the National Guard, and so I spent a gap year doing some stuff with that. And so I came to campus at UCO in 2017. I also decided I didn't want to do the best things in the world. So made some mistakes, but through that I got plugged in at a Christian fraternity on campus called Bucks, Brothers Under Christ Fraternity. And through that, it really showed me and walked me through how to be a man of God. I had the opportunity to be their chaplain and really help them set a foundation of what it looks like to disciple other men. And then I had the opportunity to be the president there as well. And through that time, when I was president, I got plugged in back at the BCM pretty heavily on their leadership team. And then near the end of my time, Kyle came. And near the end of my time in school, Kyle came around, and I was like, well, the Lord has showed me that not only am I gifted, but he's called me to do ministry work. And so I said, hey, Kyle, I'd like to work for you. But then I was like, I also needed a little bit more money. So sadly, I only work at the BCM 10 hours a week. And then the other 30 hours, I work at Waterloo Baptist Church here in Edmond. I'm the young adult associate there, and I do college ministry for them. And yeah, it's been fun. I really love specifically, discipling men, and then also just leading stuff.
Cool.
If that makes sense.
Awesome.
That's right.
Hey, Riley.
Yeah.
How'd you get here?
How did I get here? Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, Riley, how did you get here?
That's a fun story. So I graduated high school in 2020. What a year. It was great. So graduated there, and I knew graduating high school, I always had this desire to serve people and to just be in service of others. And I thought the best way to do that was to just be a fireman and to go into EMT and just into that field and to do that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's just what I'm called to do. I know it is. And of course, that was me making that decision. So I started going to TCC. That's where I met Kyle and Krista. And I started going there and started doing classes and everything. And I loved it. I loved being there. I loved working in the EMT field. I was starting to get really plugged in with BCM, TCC BCM. And while I was there, I started a internship at my church in the kids ministry. And while I was working in the kids ministry, I started really, really just slacking on my grades and slacking in the area of just school and working on my fire department stuff and my EMT stuff. And my parents approached me and were just like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Why are you slacking? What's going on in your life right now?" And I was just like, I just love it. I just love being with the kids. I love being in ministry. And they were just like, "Well, have you ever thought about just changing your major?" And I was like, that's just never came to my mind. I didn't ever think about that because I was already 3/4 of the way through. And I was like, no, that's dumb. Why would I do that? And they were like, okay, well, you either do that, quit ministry and focus fully on fire protection, or you finish your fire protection and go into ministry. And I chose the latter. I chose the second option, and because I was like, this is just what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I finished my degree in fire protection at TCC, and I'm now here at UCO. I'm studying sociology, and I want to go into ministry, and just that's how I ended up here. And it's not because I followed Krista and Kyle here.
100% is. He's lying.
That may be some of the reasons.
It's also the Lord.
Yeah,
So I guess there's that.
also the Lord doing
Mainly
work.
the Lord.
Yeah.
Once again, I followed none of y'all here. Y'all came to me.
Whatever.
Okay.
You're not that important. It's very prideful of you.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of us, and that's kind of just a glimpse of our stories. And so, Kyle, what would you say is your main goal through this podcast?
It's funny because Krista has literally been talking to me for probably about, 2 years.
Ever since I started interning. No, I made the graphics and everything, and he said, "Oh yeah, we'll do that." Never happened.
I mean, when COVID hit, there was a big push for it. I think the hard thing is, I am the guy, and even in seminary, my preaching professor, he'd be like, "Guys, it's really good to go back and listen to your sermons and be able to learn on the things you screw up on everything." I've always hated listening to myself. I don't like it. And I always had this tendency to where even in a podcast, it's like, oh, but what if it becomes something that's, it's like, oh, people actually listen to it. It's successful. I don't want that to get to me, and be prideful. But I also, I would say at this point, I don't plan on ever listening back to this. Because but the way I sound, like to me, I'm like, I just sound so awful. And so that's probably a big part of why I've been so resistant on doing these things. But through, obviously, perseverance and you and Tyson kind of joining in, I realize I think it's a good thing. I think it is a beneficial thing. I think there is a lot of positives to it. Just because we have quite a few students and everyone that, they're listening to other things. And it's kind of like, hey, there are times where they're like, hey, I have this question, or hey, we didn't get to dive into as much material or go into as much depth as we wanted to, maybe on a Thursday night during our midweek. And so I think this can really provide some more information and just hopefully provide encouragement, provide insight scripturally. I don't want to just convey like my opinion about something. Like I'm not about just spouting off my opinion on things for this podcast. Like I am about spouting off my opinion depending on the circumstance. But
We know.
but I really would like to just, hey, we can go into a little more depth and we can provide that to where students could listen to it and they could be like, all right, like, hey, that makes sense. And maybe even through that generate more discussion when we're hanging out after BCM or when they're just hanging out at the building or stuff like that, or at a coffee shop and can discuss those things. So,
yeah. Krista, kind of the same question. Like, what would you say is like your main goal through this podcast?
Well, obviously, as Kyle stated,
you love listening to yourself.
No. Oh my gosh. No, I have wanted this to be a thing for a very long time. And yeah, during quarantine, I wanted it to be a thing and it didn't happen. But here we are. Here we are. So exciting.
Look at
23.
Who would've
So
thought?
yeah, a couple years late, but it's okay. I'm not salty. But
At least
I
you're
think
part of it.
that is if we did this and I wasn't part of it, oh man. But I do think there is kind of what Kyle was saying, just an opportunity for deeper conversations to happen after Thursday nights, especially because when Kyle or someone is teaching on a Thursday night, you only have a 45-minute window to convey what you want to say. But I think the generation of conversation through that can really help just others grow deeper in their walk with Christ, help them think through things. Because I know a lot of conversations that I have with people just one-on-one are the things that challenge me most in my faith. And so I think this is just an outlet to do that. And I think that just provides a lot of just opportunity for conversation to come through just in deeper dives on what we talk about on Thursday nights, or just topics that, college students are struggling with, that can provide a lot of truth. And I think it's also really easy to, if you have someone that you are trying to share truth with or something, and you can be like, hey, like, I heard a podcast on this. Like, I do that a lot with people, and people send me podcasts a lot, and I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts too. So, and I think this is just, like I said,
So
just
she will
another good
listen to
way.
this.
100%,
basically
because
what
I
she said.
enjoy listening to
Yeah.
myself, so I can know how to be better at teaching Kyle. So,
Better at teaching Kyle or
no.
Come on, Kyle.
That's right.
Okay, Tyson. Final question. Like same setup and everything. What do you think? What's your main goal?
So I think we've all kind of talked about the same thing of like generating discussion, but not only outside of this room, but also inside this room. Like I really enjoy sitting down with like-minded Christians and just talking about stuff, talking about biblical things, biblical truths and stuff like that. So to be able to like learn from y'all and also like just spend some time each week diving into a question and just learning more through this, I think is going to be fun for me. I just enjoy discussion and enjoy talking to people and learning their opinions and learning their thoughts on truth and stuff like that. And then also I am the one like editing all this stuff too, and I really do like that side of thing, media side of things. So I'm excited for that as well.
So
but
are we.
that means that
Thank you.
that means that if everything video wise or audio wise is bad, everyone can just blame me, so it's good.
Oh, wow. Okay, he said it, not us.
Gosh, takes so much pressure off. Well, thank you guys. And I think this episode's going to be kind of on the shorter end, but I think we got everything we intended to do done, didn't we?
I believe so.
As far as like introductions, everything.
You're the
You're the
host.
host. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was saying.
You lead
You're the host.
Well, I was just making sure. Well,
Hey, actually, I'll ask Riley a question. So,
Yeah.
what are we looking at to cover each week? Like, what do you think we're going to be talking about in these next couple of weeks through this podcast?
So in the next couple weeks, it's going to be kind of a blend of things. The next couple weeks, it's going to be an array of questions we've been asked from people in our community, and also things that are being brought up during midweek on Thursday nights. Not only during like midweek, but it's going to be things that Kyle is talking about, and honestly, just kind of more of an in-depth look at the things Kyle is talking about, so we can honestly discuss more than just what he's talking about on stage, just because he only has about 40 minutes to talk about those things. So that's just going to be kind of a blend of those things that I just listed there. So we'll see, and it's just it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun, and you guys are going to like it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing your guys' views on those things as well. So
I'm pumped. Okay, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to tune in next week where we'll be having another awesome discussion. And if you want more information or want to ask us a question, make sure to follow us on Instagram at UCOBCM.